bring up, and we talked about this offline when we were talking about doing the interview,
Yep.
was the intuition and ego. And
Yes.
we were talking about energy, right? And and mindset actually. And one of the points, and so let me just kind of tease it out so these guys know what we're talking about, then we'll ask the question. So
Yep.
what we were talking about was this idea of people getting in their own way. We were talking about this idea of, you're getting ready to make a change, you're getting ready to move forward, and then you get this voice who says you don't really need to do it, or it comes up with 15 different reasons why staying the same is perfectly fine. Okay. And what we were talking about, Suman and I, we were talking about this idea where that is getting in your own way. So
Yep.
now I caught them up. When people are looking to make a genuine adjustment, I don't necessarily like to use the word change. I like to use the word adjustment, or maybe even facilitating an environment for growth. These are language I like to use. I feel like it's higher vibration.
Yeah, I also use words like adapting and being
There we
flexible.
go. Okay, there we go. Sold. So when people are making this journey of adaptation and flexibility and adjusting and all that stuff, they're going to 9 times out of 10, probably 10 times out of 10, they're going to hear this voice that says, you can't do this, or you shouldn't do this, or what you're doing is fine, or blah, 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 blah. Okay, how is it that, what would you say to somebody who, like I have a client right now who's making a big change in her business, and she's trying to do some stuff. She's actually out in Canada. She's making a big change in her business, but she was running into a technological issue and just all these other things. How would you get people on track from this, and maybe even the outbreak too, right? How would you get people on track from, okay, I've got this mindset of, I've got this voice, that's trying to give me this mindset of, I need to just stay the same and I'm perfectly fine, to, you know what, I need to get this going. What are some thoughts for people on that?
Yeah, so first of all, the circle that I tend to work with a lot are people who are very spiritual, soul-minded. So they talk about intuition and inner voice and getting in tune with yourself so that you can get more guidance from your own inner self. But the truth of the matter is there's a lot of people, and what I like to call it is having a bit of clouded judgment. So our inner voice sometimes might not be our own inner voice. It might be actually just repeating things that are being said to us because of things that we've heard other people say.
Oh,
So
let me stop you right there, Suman. What a terrific point. I'm sorry, I'm going to highlight that. Our inner voice might not actually be our voice. If I can paraphrase, it might actually be an echo of hurts past, like Days of Christmas Past, of hurts past that we think is us, but actually it's a past manifestation of what we thought happened.
And sometimes it might, that's exactly right, Brian. Sometimes it can be just our memories that are being echoed. And when things haven't gone right for us the one time in one certain aspect, we're applying that same thinking to something else. But again, it's like Einstein says, if you keep using the same thinking for what you're doing, you're going to keep getting the same results. So if you want different results, you need to change how you're looking at something and how you're thinking about it. So something that we touched on previously, and I'd like to share here as well. Many people may have heard that story about the 2 wolves. And I've got it here with myself, and I'll actually read it from here. An old Cherokee chief teaching his grandson about life. A fight is going on inside me, he said to the boy. It is a terrible fight, and it's between 2 wolves. One is evil. He is anger, envy, sorrow, regret, greed, arrogance, self-pity, guilt, resentment, inferiority, lies, false pride, superiority, self-doubt, and ego. The other is good. He is joy, peace, love, hope, serenity, humility, kindness, benevolence, empathy, generosity, truth, compassion, and faith. The same fight is going on inside you too, and inside every other person too. The grandson asked then his grandfather, which wolf will win? The old chief simply replied, the one you feed. Now, I love this story because this inner wolf that's inside ourselves, we've got a bit of both. We've got a side of us that wants to win and wants to achieve and wants to do things. We've got a side of ourselves, and not necessarily as it's described in here. What I like to, because I like to put positive spin on everything, I like to think of it the side of ourselves, and in NLP terms, our subconscious mind, when it's safeguarding us,
Right.
It's keeping us protected. It doesn't want us to be in a situation where we're going to be hurt, where we're going to be, suffer any kind of damage or fear, or it's just protecting us. But in protecting us, it's stopping us from growing and evolving.
Right.
So these two wolves is what I would mirror as being those two voices inside us. And why at the end about it's the one that you feed. So how are we feeding these wolves inside us? So how are we feeding the part that wants to protect us and the one that wants to grow? So if you keep doing things where you're taking on challenges, you're taking on risks, you're learning from your failure, and you don't mind failing, and you get used to failing, and you get used to rejection, like they say in sales as well. Look for the no's. When you start getting used to that, you're feeding that part of you that's growing, that wants to grow and evolve. But if you keep feeding the side that wants to protect you, safeguard you, is afraid to take chances and risks, and you're just being very calculated with everything that you do, you'll overthink. You can get yourself into overwhelm by overthinking. You will get yourself staying in this little spot what people call the comfort zone.
Right.
And you will stay comfortable and relaxed and then not ever grow and evolve. And sometimes you do need that, which is why our subconscious mind has that in place to keep us protected. But sometimes we need to realize, is it our subconscious mind and our fear or our ego speaking to us and making us stay where we are? Or, should we actually look at the other side of how can we change the neurology? How can we go to the growth mindset, and start growing and developing and evolving and adapting and becoming more of who we are and being more? Because when you feed that wolf more, that inner voice of yours will be more prominent, and it'll be more of the growth voice, so to speak. And that's just something I've just come up with now, but I think it's more of building up that growth part of ourselves.
I think that makes all kinds of sense. And what you feed, continuing with that analogy, is what you think, it's what you do, it's how you act, it's how one of the things that I've talked about is how you show up. My girlfriend likes to talk about that a lot.
Yep.
How is it, again, relating back to this point, during this outbreak, or whenever people happen to be listening to this, we happen to be shooting it during this time,
Yep.
but like whenever I made a personal decision myself on what I'm going to do to show up. When I look back at this period of time, this is what I'm going to be looking at. And here's how I showed up. And I think that what you're saying is people need to first, here's what I heard. First, they need to acknowledge that their situation is a function of what they actually did. Second, they need to be able to say, all right, now how am I going to show up for going forward? And then third, I need to manage that gap in terms of which wolf am I going to feed and how am I going to go about this in a way that allows me to get to where I've been saying I want to go. I totally agree with that.
And the other thing I'll also add to that is another way you can feed that wolf is the things that we're intaking. So information that's always all around us. So what are we reading? What information are we consuming? Are we constantly on the media? Are we on social media? Are we constantly watching the news? Are we constantly absorbing negative things and bringing in negativity into ourselves without realizing it? Like constantly reading like newspapers and stuff like that, or magazines. And if you are reading things, what types of information are you reading? So information we're letting in ourselves is the videos we watch, the conversations we're having, the people we're speaking to, the circles we're hanging around with. They all will impact the information that's being fed to our souls.
That is awesome. That is awesome. All right, guys, that is Suman Mangra. She is the Manifestation Maven, mindset and empowerment coach. Suman, thank you so much for stopping by. This was really great. I appreciate it.
And I appreciate it too. And I really hope it can help whoever's listening now. And if you do want any other further support or would like to have that conversation to hang around with like-minded people like myself and Brian, get in touch, and do get in touch with myself on those platforms.
Awesome. Awesome. Thanks so much.
Thank you.